Hi, I'm Anthony Moreno. This is KRWG Public Media Election 2023 coverage featuring the Las Cruces Public Schools District 4 board candidates. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico are pleased to present this forum. The rules for this forum are simple. Each candidate has up to 60 seconds to answer each question and should not mention their opponent in their answer. We want to welcome our candidates, incumbent candidate Teresa Tenorio, candidate Edward Howell, and candidate Julia Ruiz. My co-moderator for this forum is Ruth Jari with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. I will begin with the first question to the incumbent candidate. What are the skills and background experiences that equip you to be a school board member?
I think the past 46 months that I've worked, or not worked, but served in this school board has really given me greater insight and the experience that I don't think I would have known had I not been elected. So some of that would be hiring a superintendent, appointing a board member, the every ins and outs of agenda setting, running the meeting, responding to media. I believe working with constituents with difficult questions, whether it was about the calendar, about name change of a school, about SROs, about policies dealing with equity and gender inclusion. Through all of that, I always approach this with an open heart. And just like my motto of my campaign is that I face these challenges and I rise higher.
Okay, candidate Howell, same question.
Anthony, several things that come to mind that I think have prepared me for this particular opportunity that I have here on the school board. One, my business background. I've owned a business, a successful business in El Paso for 30 plus years, and I have a finance degree and understand the mechanics of running an organization, making it run successfully, hiring people, training people. But the biggest part of what I've managed to learn over the years, Anthony, has been through really starting in college, experience working with kids and teaching them. Kindergarten kids, elementary school kids, middle school kids, high school kids, college-age kids. In after-school programs, I've devoted a lot of even my business life to working in those areas and have learned a lot. Most of these were programs that were in
all right,
parts
that
of El
is
Paso.
our time. We're moving
Sure.
on to candidate Ruiz.
Yes, sir. So I believe that my work experience, my life experience, my education all play a good part in me becoming a school board member. My background is criminal justice, business education. I've taught at the Doñana Detention Center. I've taught mathematics there. I've got 2 girls as well, so I've raised them and I know how to, again, be a parent. The other things that I've done throughout my life are I'm in the legal field right now. I'm in the workforce. I've hired people. I've interacted with the community as well, so I know a lot of different people in just different backgrounds, and also being an immigrant from Mexico, my experience from being an outsider brings me here as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on to our next question.
Candidate Howell, this is for you.
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
start with you. What do you feel are the strengths and weaknesses of our public schools?
The strengths, you have some wonderful teachers. I've actually been a substitute in the district several months ago for a period of time. A lot of great administrators. They're people who are desirous of helping the kids grow. I think that's their strong suit, your teachers. The weaknesses, I think, have been really comes down to a lack of focus from the administration on doing the main thing that is required really of all public schools, which is to educate our students. And I go to the school board meetings and I see just that inability to recognize what they're really there to do, which is to teach. So I think that is the biggest weakness and the biggest struggle that the district faces.
Candidate Ruiz, same question.
So one of the strengths, I believe, is our wonderful teachers. They're they're licensed, they're trained, they know what to do in their careers. And the weaknesses, I think, are one, maybe parental involvement and having more parents involved in the schools. We just need to get them in there.
So I think this was one of the questions asked in the survey that's going to be printed out, but I said that our strength was our employees, because throughout everything they've remained strong, resilient, and they have incredible love for children and for community. And I think that's really what keeps Las Cruces Public Schools not only going, but thriving. And there are ways that we can improve. So the challenges I see are things that really hit us early with the cyberware attack, with the pandemic that affected all school districts. We have challenges with chronic absenteeism, which we are working at hiring social work interns and increasing that pipeline from NMSU to LCPS, which may benefit other school districts eventually, because there is a social work shortage in New Mexico. Our challenges, mental health challenges among students. Our challenges are budgetary.
Okay, that is our time.
Okay.
We're going to move on to the next question. What approaches do you feel should be developed to raise the graduation rate? And we will begin with candidate Ruiz.
So one of the things that I believe, we have an 80% graduation rate. The problem is that our kids are not proficient in reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think it's important that we assess them throughout the grades so that we catch whatever problems or issues that they're having before they go on to the next grade level, so that when they do graduate, they are proficient in these 3 subjects. And by the time first grade, again, assess them. Second grade, assess them. Make sure that they understand the curriculum, whatever is being taught in those grades, and just continuously assess them to make sure that they are proficient in that subjects.
Okay, we're moving on to candidate Tenorio.
So the question was about graduation rates?
Yes. What approaches do you feel should be developed to raise the graduation rate?
What we're doing is we're adopting some new competency programs for the graduate level that they can show their competency in other ways. In addition, we have a graduation profile that's looking at other skills that we want graduates to complete and move on with. What I think most important is the proficiency, right? We need to increase math and ELA literacy and proficiency, and that's going to be done at a much deeper level, at looking at first-year instruction on how that's being done. First-year instruction, it means that before specialization is needed for a student. Are there gaps in their instruction? Are we meeting the standards, standard-based learning? And that will help us. We also are contracted to do a 6-year study, which includes implementation of increasing those scores through evidence-based ways.
All right, that is our time. We're going to move on to candidate Howell.
Anthony, there are really 2 components that I think. One is the teachers. That has to start in the classroom. Leadership by the teachers in the classroom to recognize the problems that kids are facing right in that classroom. My wife was a teacher, and I know what she would do in those situations. And so 1, teachers. 2, I think the second important thing is getting the parents involved. There's public schools were started by parents, and the parents have somehow along the way lost their train of thought on working with their kids and to ensure that they're in school, they're prepared, they're ready to learn. So I think those 2 things.
All right, we're moving on to the next question.
What steps do you feel the district can take to strengthen school safety? And we'll start with incumbent candidate Tenorio.
Steps do I feel that the district can do to improve safety?
To strengthen school safety.
So we recently voted to retain the school resource officers. There's 1 officer per middle school and high school. And we also have security guards. I mentioned recently in our meeting when we voted on SROs that is one spoke in the wheel of what schools need to do to not only increase safety, but increase the sense of safety for the employers and students and families. Other things that need to be done, and I know that it's being done, is looking at the facilities. Are they reinforced as needed? And I think that's a continuous improvement based on our capital outlay monies. Another thing is social workers and counselors, and really trying to help students be in a safe place to work on issues that may be problematic for being among other students.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Howell.
Yes, ma'am. Ruth, I think when we talk about safety, we're talking about that the kids can go to school and not be fearful that something's going to happen to them. So part of that is there are questions about bullying and things like that, and we need help in the schools with social workers and people where they feel safe, and when there are bullying instances, those should be taken care of. But overarching above that is the issue of just someone with a gun coming into the school, and I think we have to have armed security people in the schools, every school, to ensure that what happened in Uvalde won't happen here in Las Cruces.
Candidate Ruiz.
I believe also that we need armed officers in every school. In addition, we need to make sure that whenever somebody's visiting, there are cameras in there, have systems in place to where you actually call in who's coming in, why are they coming in, do we have a sign-in sheet or a roster to make sure that they are safe people to come in. Same thing with bullying. We need counselors. We need the mental health issue. We need more counselors to help with all those issues with our children.
Okay, we're moving on to the next question. Can you please share your opinion on how transportation services in the district are performing? We'll begin with candidate Howell.
Well, I was at a board meeting recently, Anthony, and that issue came up, and you know, the timing, people were coming in, the drivers were picking up the kids late and all those sorts of things. Right now, that's handled through STS. I think it's sort of subcontracted out. And I think probably that needs to come under the purview of the district directly employing those people. But it's going to be a challenge. The drivers need to be paid, compensated for fairly. It's a tough job. But I know it can be done. I was in public school. At 7:20, Mr. Bobo picked me up every morning for 5 or 6 years. So it can be done, and I think it needs to be handled.
Okay, candidate Ruiz.
Yes, I believe that the bus drivers also need to be employed under the Las Cruces Public Schools. They need to be better compensated. They need their, again, be under the public schools so that our children are safe. We're not constantly late. We want our children to be picked up on time and get to school on time. This also goes into starting school late whenever the buses are not running on time. But yes, take care of the employees under the Las Cruces Public School entity.
Incumbent candidate Tenorio.
Thank you. So I've been keeping abreast of this situation since before school started, and district was telling us we're all good to go, and so the board says, okay, we'll sign the contract if you're saying the STS is saying they're ready to go. And then the reality was that there was a bus driver shortage, and a lot of children were put on other routes, additional routes for the drivers, which just made the routes later, caused children to be late going to school and late going home, and also issues with maintenance of the buses, making sure the air conditioners were ready and operating as they should be. I took a ride on 3 of those buses, and I'm scheduled to take another ride on it because I'm not done with this issue. I'm actually really upset about it. I'm the one that asked STS to be at that board meeting so that they could hear from me directly. They've been working on a weekly basis with the district because it's almost a need at this point.
All right, that is our time. We're moving on to the next question.
As a board member, where would you look to make budget cuts if needed? And we'll start with candidate Ruiz, please.
Budget cuts. Well, I think that possibly selling any property that we don't need. Why are we paying for the maintenance of the property that we don't need in the Las Cruces Public Schools? I believe there's some behind Desert Hill School. So we can start cutting maintenance that's not needed and money that's not needed to be spent.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Tenorio.
That's really difficult. I've been serving on the budget committee and now the finance subcommittee, which is the 5-member board meeting. And where we're seeing the most worry or concern is with the loss of emergency federal funding through ESSA, ARPA, that money that we were using to address, to add more counselors, to add, to pay for the benefits and additional salary of those people that are currently not under our SCG or operational funds. And so trying to keep up with the salaries and the premiums for employees that we have is difficult. And as far as cuts, I think we're tapped out. I don't think we can afford to lose employees. So looking at programs, that's going to be very, very difficult.
Candidate Howell.
Ruth, I really think there shouldn't be any cuts in what's being spent. I think I mean, just looking at the overall budget, which is what, $266 million or something, I think it should be examined, and some of that money, it needs to be directed. I think most of it ought to go to teachers. There's a huge shortage, critical shortage of teachers in this country. And for us to be competitive and get the best teachers, we're going to have to pay for it. I mean, that's just the reality of the way any organization works. And so there are probably going to be folks in some of those administrative positions, kind of back room sort of operations that maybe don't need to be let go, but they may not, if they retire or move on, they may not be replaced. So I think we ought to leave the budget to where it is.
All right, we're moving on to the next question. What more can the school district do to support the learning of children in poverty? And we will start with incumbent candidate Tenorio.
So we have a very large population of our students in poverty, and it reflects basically our community at large. What we currently do is we have grants like McKinney-Vento that helps with our homeless population of students, which is absolutely heartbreaking, and yet what we can do to support them, to bring them to school, to help them meet their basic needs. As far as any other type of additional support, we have community schools. Community schools, currently I think there are 8 out of our 40 schools. They bring in a lot more community partnerships and resources with services that students and families need, such as healthcare, vision and eye care, mental health care, counseling, laundry services on-site at the school's campuses. These types of stuff really make a difference for students to feel like their needs are met, and then they can focus on learning.
Candidate Howell?
Anthony, we can look to the south of us here in El Paso, some of the school districts down there that have similar issues, big populations of poverty, and they manage to handle it. It's a solvable problem. But I think really every school ought to be a community school, because public school is a community function. And so you don't have to be rich to learn. You don't have to be middle class to learn and be educated. You have to have good teachers who can prepare the kids and work with them, and always get the parents involved. Always. The parents have dropped the ball big time on this issue.
Okay, candidate Ruiz.
Yes, I think parental involvement is very important. I think if the parents don't understand, we need to have the parents understand why education is very important. I think that, again, all schools should be community schools, and make a plan for all the resources that are given to the students, that we have a plan for them to get out of the poverty, of the cycle, and make sure that they are learning so they can have careers and a bright future and success in their lives.
All right, we're moving on to the next question.
Okay, what actions do you think the board can take to improve reading proficiency? And we'll start with candidate Howell.
Well, again, it starts in the classroom. Leadership doesn't start at the top with Mr. Ruiz, who's the new superintendent, or with the board. It starts in the classroom. And the parent and the teachers need to focus on that. I mean, any classroom is going to be full of, let's say you had 20 kids in there. They're they're going to be all over the board. They're not all going to have the same gifts and talents and abilities. The teachers have to recognize those. That's why it's so vital that we have good teachers, so that they can catch that early. This COVID thing caused all kinds of problems, but it's fixable. And so we just need to focus on in the classroom, starting with the teachers. Okay.
Candidate Ruiz?
I think that it starts at home. Make sure that the parents understand why it's important that the kids learn how to read, and then of course go on into the schools and focus on the reading, and again assess them, see what kind of resources they need, see what kind of assistance they need to get them to that reading proficiency level.
Thank you. And incumbent candidate Tenorio.
So when you asked what board actions can be done to improve reading proficiency, the board has already voted to work with the Cooperative Educational Services of New Mexico. They're going to work with us as a 6-year study and implementation I mentioned earlier to help improve our student outcomes and reading and math levels of proficiency. Like I mentioned, the superintendent is working with our current assessment data to improve Tier 1 instruction, and they're going to align the divisions and departments to make sure they all have supports and services. That's what can be done at the board level. I think aside from that, I would promote the district to hire more literacy coaches.
That is our time. We're moving on to the next question. What can the school district do to help improve math literacy? We'll begin with candidate Ruiz.
Math literacy, we can again hire more teachers and make sure that they understand and assess the students and make it fun for the students, make it interesting for the students, but take them on field trips and implement and say, oh, well, this is, make it part of a fun thing to do so that it's not so boring. I know a lot of students think that math is not fun and it's not interesting because they don't like it. So make it fun for them, make it interesting for them, take them out on field trips.
All right, candidate Tenorio.
Well, regarding math literacy, I think it's the same as reading literacy, is that we need to support our educators and give them the professional development that they know that they ask for, that they want. Also, in audits of classrooms and central office, looking at where are the gaps in improving instruction, where are the gaps in our materials that we're using, where are the gaps in communication between district to classroom to homes. I think all of that, improving relationships and supporting our teachers, will go out a long ways to help our students.
Okay, candidate Howell.
I was one of those students who struggled in math, to let the big secret out. But the way to fix that, again, it starts in the classroom. Good teachers who understand it, involved parents who can work with the kids, even if they're not good mathematicians themselves, they can still work with the parents to ensure that their kids are going to school and that they're learning. Again, not everybody is going to be on the same level math-wise, but it's important that it begins in the classroom, and that the focus, we haven't talked about this, but one of the focuses is that the schools have gotten away from is all the ancillary sorts of subject matters they're trying to put in place, which take away from that learning in the classroom.
Okay, we're moving on to our next question, which may be our final question.
How do you feel the district can help strengthen accessibility in schools? And we'll start with candidate Tenorio.
How do I feel the district can improve accessibility
in schools?
In schools. So I think a lot of changed with these school attacks and then with COVID, where the doors became more frequently locked and it's not as easily for people to go in and out the way we how it used to be. So accessibility has to happen in a different way, as far as creating these events where parents are invited, that community is invited, accessibility in terms of how do we reach people now, how do we reach families, and I think they're doing a good job of finding them on social media, email, text messages. I think though what we're lacking is maybe meetings at the school level between school administration and teachers, but they do have open houses, but this is to have the more serious talks.
Okay, Candidate Howell.
Yes, ma'am. In my job in El Paso, I worked a lot with the public schools there and in the two fastest growing districts there, and they were able to solve that problem because they built new schools constantly, and they were able to keep up with the issues that developed from that about accessibility and how they can go in and out of the rooms and bathrooms and all those kinds of things. But I think that really can't be done quite yet here, except with new construction like the new elementary school that's being built. But it might make sense to, in some of the newer schools, to be able to get those kids in those facilities that are accessible through the bus system. And there are a lot of them being picked up all right now anyway, so that might be one way of handling it.
Thank you. Candidate Ruiz.
So accessibility in the schools, I think bringing the schools via Zoom, I mean, that's a way to access schools, education. We can, social media, emails, maybe having a monthly meeting at different schools and inviting the public, inviting the parents, having them at different areas that is easy for people to access so they don't have to travel so far.
That completes the KRWG Public Media LCPS Board District 4 Candidate Forum. We want to thank our candidates Teresa Tenorio, Edward Howell, and Julia Ruiz. We also want to thank our co-host Ruth Jare with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. I'm Anthony Moreno. Thank you for joining us, and remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th.